Okay, it seems we are all on board. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I'd just like you to know that this event is being recorded, and there is also a translation channel for those who prefer to listen in Spanish. So thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. My name is George Moniki, and I'm the Air Quality Director at the World Resources Institute Africa office. As you might know, WRI is a global research organization that works with governments, businesses, multilateral institutions, and civil society groups to develop practical solutions that improve people's lives and ensure nature can thrive. We recognize our work around we organize our work around 7 global challenges, that is foods, forests, water, energy, climate, the oceans, and cities. We analyze these issues through the lenses of our 4 centers of excellence, that is business, economics, finance, and equity. As part of our count it, change it, and scale it approach, we work with partners to mobilize our commissions and major global initiatives. These delivery platforms do allow us to create large-scale change with lasting impacts. We have more than 1,200 staff around the world and offices in more than 12 countries. And we work with partners in more than 50 countries. We are very pleased to be able to welcome those of you that have been with us for a long time now, and as well as those who are new to the Cainairy Alert project. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentations, please type them in the chat box in your Zoom control panel. Our moderators will bring them up during the Q&A sessions. We will have 2 Q&A sessions for this presentation, so there will be plenty of opportunities to bring your questions up at any point. I would also like to recognize some of our partners in this project. That is NASA. If you can move to the next slide, please. Yeah, so that is NASA, Airco, and Africa, and also the partners who have provided the financial support for these projects, who is the Clean Air Fund, and also United Nations Environment Program. This event is scheduled to take 70 minutes, and because of time constraints, we will not have time for personalized introductions, but we would like to know who is with us, so please let us introduce ourselves in the chat box, stating your name, institutions, and contact details. And also it would be nice to know where you're joining us from. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Tom Greaves, one of the presenters today, Tom is an analyst at the Clean Air Funds, where he works where he works as an analyst, and his work focuses on air quality data, making that data more accessible and actionable, and also illuminating the health and economic impacts of air pollution. Tom completed his PhD at Imperial College London, where his research focused on computational modeling of pollution dispersion in urban areas, specifically investigating the roles of trees, urban design, chemistry, and atmospheric stability in determining local pollution concentrations. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, George, and hello to everyone on the call. Yeah, as you introduced, my name's Tom Greaves. I'm an analyst at the Clean Air Fund, who are one of the organizations that are supporting this initiative. I'm standing in today on behalf of Matt Whitney, who is our portfolio manager for our data-related work, and was unfortunately not able to make the session. So yeah, we're really excited to see the Cainairy Alert program being launched. And in the next couple of minutes, I just wanted to give a brief introduction to who the Clean Air Fund are, a little bit about our work, and then how it all ties into this project as it's developed. So the Clean Air Fund is a philanthropic initiative that makes grants to improve air quality at a global scale and also at a kind of national scale within our so-called lighthouse geographies. Our funding spans broadly across 4 pillars. Those are generating locally relevant data, building and diversifying demand for clean air, supporting government and corporate delivery and implementation of towards clean air, and finally, developing and increasing funding to the air quality field. So today's session and what Matt and I predominantly work on falls under our air quality data portfolio. Within this portfolio, we're looking to support partners that are working to improve the availability, accessibility, uptake, and effective use of air quality data. And we do so with the broad objectives of raising awareness and driving the implementation of more effective policies. This project falls under our global portfolio of grants, with cities on the call spanning across Latin America and Africa and leading the work. We also work more in depth in what we call our lighthouse geographies. So up until last year, these have been the UK, Poland, Bulgaria, and India. But we now have an emerging program in Africa too that I wanted to highlight. So this will follow the Clean Air Fund approach of having a particular focus within one nation, and that is Ghana, but then also conducting cross-continent activities too around the work, specifically in Ghana. So we're in the process of recruiting a country lead in Ghana to lead setting up the office there. And a lot of our initial work across Africa is focusing on data, given the gaps that exist. And hopefully there'll be lots of opportunities across our broader portfolio to ensure synergies with this group and with this project. So finally, onto the project itself. We're really, really excited to get the work underway with WRI and all of the partners on this call. We see this as a great opportunity to essentially use existing data that's already out there more effectively, and to develop actionable tools that can be adapted and taken up, first of all, by the city stakeholders on this call, and then building on your leadership, scaled up to potentially hundreds of cities globally. The outcomes we're hoping to achieve are more actionable information about local air quality at the city level with lower barriers to entry, added value for low-cost sensor deployments by linking them to the forecast that this project is on, and then a suite of scalable tools that, as I mentioned, can be scaled up beyond this group and integrated more effectively within air quality management plans. So really looking forward to this session, in particular to understand the various city perspectives and challenges, and hearing more about the lessons that we'll learn in the piloting phase of this project with Bogota. Thank you very much. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions in the chat. Thank you.
Many thanks, Tom, for that brief introduction to the Clean Air Funds. Just a reminder that if you have any questions or comments to Tom, please remember to type it on the chat box. And also on the chat box, I can see a lot of introductions. Really, many thanks for that. Our next presenter is Beatrice Canandes, who is the Global Air Quality Director at WRI. She is an expert in air pollution, with experience in both science and policy, from the study of biological processes to treat air pollutants, to the design and implementation of integrated policies to achieve clean air. Prior to joining WRI, she was the General Director of Air Quality Management in Mexico City. She was a Fulbright Garcia Robles Scholar at the University of Massachusetts, where she got an MSc and a PhD in environmental engineering. Over to you, Beatrice.
Thank you, and good morning, good evening, everyone. Really at WRI, we are so happy to be today in this launching event. What I will do is just present briefly what is the Cainairy Alert project and giving you some background. As you may know, WRI Air Quality team has been working on converting science to tools on air quality that could be used by cities, by citizens. We know that there are so much research and so much development out there that could be used by the cities, by the citizens. So what we have been doing, and this is Cainairy Alert is part of that search, is joining and collaborating with groups that have already developed some science project that could be converted to tools. And one of those tools that we have been working on is identifying what could cities have in terms of air quality forecasts. We have a lot of work with cities. We have been working in several topics with cities, and one of them is air quality. So why forecast? Why looking for a science development that could be converted in a tool? Well, because we already know that warning of pollution is important, and because having some tools could help people to protect. We know that there are so many things that we cannot do when there is a high pollution event, but those, particularly the most susceptible and the most vulnerable, knowing in advance that a high pollution event will happen, they could do at least some activities, change some activities that would help them to protect themselves. So the first reason is self-protection. The second one is that we know that warning of extraordinary pollution events, or when we have background pollution that is coming to the city, it's important to know in advance so city leaders can take some actions that maybe without knowing that would be so difficult to take. We also know that these specific actions that could be taken in a high event alert, a high pollution event, are not sustainable. They're only for those specific events, but knowing in advance could allow the authorities to communicate citizens and maybe to reduce some specific emissions that otherwise will not have any control. We know that again, that that's not sustainable. So in terms of regulatory balance, informing and maybe taking some decisions, as we know that has happened in some cities. And finally, we also know that we need to build both public awareness and some specific sectors awareness that air pollution it's a complex phenomena. It's a result of the emissions coming from the city as well as outside the city, and mixed with particular meteorological conditions. So knowing this, it's important. It allows us to identify what sources of water conditions are actually making us more vulnerable when we have high emissions or high pollution days. Next one, please. So those were the reasons. So what we have been trying to do is to develop a scalable model, and this is the goal of the Cainairy Alert. So it's a scalable model that allows us to combine locally available air quality monitoring information. The information that the city has, it could be from reference monitoring station, the first cohort of cities that we work with, we collaborate with, we use their reference monitoring stations. But we know that cities have different type of data, of the information available in cities is not always from a specific type of reference monitoring stations. So what we want is just to combine that locally available information with the outputs of the NASA's global GEOS model, which is the composition forecast model, GEOS-CF. And then from that, to develop a tailored air quality forecast that subnational leaders and citizens can use. How is this done? This is done by the NASA team using a machine learning algorithm, checking as well what type of data could be used, the quality of data, the representations of the data. That's how we do it. Next one, please. So, well, Cainairy Alert is the result of first stage that we started a couple of years ago. What you can see is that we call that the first stage CTAQ, and all the list of the participants that you can see in your left side are the participants, the project team that we have from the first cohort. So the first cohort included cities mainly from Latin America and some other cities in other parts of the world, but we work closely with these cities, again, by getting their data and getting the bias corrected output of the forecast, and then working as well, collaborating with the cities just to identify what other tools they needed, for instance, visualization of the forecast, as well as the training or follow-up of some questions. Now, this stage, the Cainairy Alert, we are including more partners, Africair, Airquo, UNAM, as well as 4 cities, Accra, Kampala, Kigali, and Nairobi. So that's why we are celebrating today, and we are happy to expand this group of cities that are in the pilot to using this forecast for cities. Next one, please. So another tool that we are going to test in this in Cainairy Alert is source identification and estimation of emissions. So this is by combining satellite products with local data. Let's see if we can use all the data available, monitoring data, emissions inventory, air quality, chemical models. As we will focus in this first stage in troponin, S5P, using carbon monoxide as the first pollutant. This is in collaboration with Dr. Grutter from UNAM and the team from the Ministry of Environment in Bogota. And once we have this as a pilot, we will be transferred to other cities. In this case, we are planning to transfer that to Nairobi as the first pilot. Next one, please. And finally, as part of this group of cities that are part of Cainairy Alert, and they were also part of the first stage of the project, we are forming a community of practice, air quality community of practice that is holding technical talks on different topics that we have identified that the cities need. It's formed by mainly staff from these authorities, these local authorities and subnational authorities, but it's also open to other interested people and experts that could also share and also learn what are the needs from the city. So these tech talks are taking place from February 22 to March 23. We have set up a Google Classroom just as a community platform where the participants share and can access to some materials, some questions. And for those who are not part of the community of practice, you can access the tech talks 1 week after we have the session, the community of practice in the City Peaks Learn. And well, the next tech talk will be on the topic of air monitoring. So we welcome all of you to participate. And that will be for my part. Again, we are so happy to have the new 4 cities, and we are looking forward to collaborate with all of you. Thank you.
Many thanks, Beatrice, for that brief introduction to the project. Remember, for the participants, if you have any questions for Beatrice, please type them in the chat box, and he'll be getting to them. Now we switch gears and move to the people who are supposed or who are tasked with the duty of making sure that we breathe clean air. And first, we will start with Honorable Rari Wambua, who is currently the Minister of Environment, Energy, Water, and Sanitation at Nairobi City County Government. Honorable Wambua comes to us as a lawyer by profession. He attained his LLB degree from the University of Nairobi in 1989, and later on established the LM Wambua and Company Advocates. He has served as a Minister of Agriculture also in Machakos County. After Honorable Wambua, we will hear from Mr. Eric Asuman, who is the current Acting Director General for Ghana Meteorology Agency. Mr. Asuman has vast experience in both the private and public sectors, with a substantial part of the experience obtained in the public sector domain. He is a member of the Institute of Directors in Ghana, and he holds a postgraduate certificate in public administration from Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration. He has vast experience in management, accounting, and auditing. This particular session will be moderated by Kofi. Now to you, Honorable Mbua.
Thank you very much, Monique. Good morning and good evening, everyone. As Monique has said, I am from the city of Nairobi. I'm the minister in charge of water, environment, natural resources, and climate change. I'm here to talk about the challenges that the city of Nairobi is having in respect of air quality. Briefly, the challenges that we face are one, limited monitoring of air quality in the city, limited partners to support our efforts in air quality management and monitoring, capacity gaps, including air quality management tools and technical capacity within the city and also in the country nationally. For limited opportunities for cross-border learning and south-to-south engagement forums on air quality. Even with our challenges, we have managed to do the following. We have already passed an air quality policy. We have also enacted our air quality action plan, and we have done a bill, air quality bill, that is in the last stage of enactment into law in our county assembly. So we welcome this engagement, and we are happy to be part of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Rari. Now we go to Mr. Eric, and I think the question that we had asked Mr. Eric Ashman was how can sources identification and air quality forecasting support the implementation of air quality actions in Accra and beyond? To you, Mr. Eric.
Thank you, and good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Happy to be here. And as you introduced me, I am Eric Asuman, the Acting Director General, Ghana Meteorological Agency. And as a meteorological agency, we provide forecasts of the weather events to the population and the citizenry. As part of our broad areas, air quality is area of interest, and we want to provide tomorrow air, quality of tomorrow air today. So it's something that we are working towards. But let me start by saying that exposure in air pollution or exposure to air pollution is injurious to our health and our overall existence as human beings. Therefore, to have improved air quality means, reducing exposure to air pollution or air pollutants. And so identifying the source of this pollutants is very critical to tackle the issue of air pollution and to have air quality. So source identification will actually help to determine the processes that will contribute to air pollution, having air quality or reducing air pollution in Accra, and not only Accra, the whole Ghana or Accra and beyond. This will actually enable stakeholders to target their efforts towards pollution reduction or targeting their efforts to reducing factors that contribute to air pollution. So it's important to not only identify the source, but also create awareness of the factors that contribute to air pollution or air quality. Those who are involved in creating more problems in this area, they get to know what the activity is causing mankind and how the activities are affecting the quality of air. It will help them to, on their own, do something to mitigate the activities that contribute to air pollution. Again, if policymakers come out with policies to address, having identified this source, to address these pollutants, you have the buy-in of these factors that contribute, or people or activities that contribute to air pollution, they are buy-in, and that will help the policy to succeed. So it's very important to identify the source and also create awareness of this source to the people who are affected by it, and then the people who are contributing to the poor air quality. Again, air quality forecast is very important because it will enable the development of early warning tools or systems that could be used as a basis for the policymakers, governments to come out with initiative aimed at reducing air pollution and to improve quality of air and improve life. And so I believe it's critical that we take very serious look at these factors and go through the process to deal with it by creating the awareness and putting in policies to address. And it's good for the institution like Ghana Meteorological Agency to be able to provide tomorrow today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, hello. Good afternoon. So I think now we can move into the Q&A session. So if you have any questions for Mr. Eric Suman or Honorable, you can just raise up your hands and then we can go straight into that. Alternatively, too, you can type them in the chat box. Okay, so we have one question here. I'm not sure it's directed towards the presenters per se, but possibly maybe Beatrice can take it up. It's from one Victor in 2C, and he said, how would one or a potential user of the two characterize pollution events in the participating African countries, e.g. Sahara dust, biomass burning, traffic rush hours, and what will be the potential thresholds in terms of concentration levels, for instance? I don't know whether Beatrice wants to take that one up.
Yes, I can do that. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
First of all, I will say that the GEOS-CF model, it's a 25 by 25 kilometers grid. So what is possible to see is what is happening within that grid. What we have been seeing is that if there are data, air quality monitoring data within that grid, then the model can be adjusted, bias adjusted, so the air quality forecast will be delivered at the station level of where the air quality monitoring data is being generated. And so it's maybe, I mean, we know that the rush hour emissions may not be captured because the model is using regional emissions inventories, but it will definitely capture when you have stability periods, when you have biomass burning, when you have Sahara dust events, the model captures that. Now, the resolution that has to be, that's the point. Once we have the air quality forecast bias corrected, it is the work by the cities in collaboration with the group to identify and to evaluate the performance of the model. So what we have seen, and you will listen later with the experience of Bogota, what we have also listening the experience of other cities like Monterrey metro area, is that the teams are looking at the forecast and then evaluate the performance with the monitoring data. And they are able to see what monitoring stations are better in terms of forecasting with the GEOS-CF bias adjusted. And maybe in some other occasions, either there are some sources that are not being captured by the model, as we know, local sources, or maybe what we have also seen is that the air quality monitoring stations may not be representative to give this or to produce data that is useful for the air quality modeling. So I will say that once the cities, and as I mentioned, this is a scalable model that we want to do. So in this case are the 4 cities, but eventually what we want is to build a platform that cities can submit their data. They will get the air quality forecast bias corrected, and then they can start using, and as I mentioned, evaluate the performance and identify, as it was mentioned, what are the thresholds for what pollutants. The model now is bias corrected for PM2.5, ozone, and NO2, NOx, or nitrogen dioxide, NO2. But the GEOS-CF model has the potential to generate forecasts for more species, but they are not bias correct. I hope I have answered that.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have Mr. Emmanuel Apo, who is a Deputy Director of the Ghana EPA, as one of the participants, and his hands has been up. So Mr. Apo, I will invite you to make a contribution, but importantly, I want you to touch on how you see this project in trying to address some of the pollution issues in Accra and nationwide, because we believe that the project will be very beneficial to the city, and how EPA as a whole sees this project. So in whatever contribution you want to make, if you want to touch on this, that would be very great. Thank you. Mr. Apo, are you still online?
I'm sorry, you're saying Desmond Apaya?
No, it's Mr. Emmanuel Apo.
Emmanuel Apo. Okay, I have to open his is he raising his hand? No, I just
if he is not available, then let's ask Nanama Brown Kluche. Dr. Kluche, are you around?
I try to unmute yourself. I might need to unmute you as the moderator of the event.
So have you unmuted me?
Okay, can you spell the name of who needs to be unmuted?
Hello.
Emmanuel Apo, yes, so that's it. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Please go ahead. And I believe you heard the pointers that I provided.
Yes.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Thanks very much. I'm Emmanuel Apo, Acting Director for Environmental Quality Issues, including air quality. I'm very, very glad to be part of this because air quality is everybody's concern. And Ghana is not unique among the countries that are also fighting for air pollution to be reduced. We working very hard with Kofi & Co at the universities, and then with the Director General also from the Ghana Meteorological Agency. And the key thing we want to do as a country is to ensure that we have monitors spread across the country, and then be able to also broadcast information to the citizens for human health protection. And studies from various aspects, various countries. We'll be working with Kenya for some time now. I think the Kenyan man who spoke, if you could remember me, you see, we've learned a lot from ourselves, sharing South-South cooperation on air pollution. So, though I didn't get what Kofi said to get the whole gist, but I could sense that you want me to speak about the situation in the country. Yes, the situation in the country is that we need to pool resources together, be able to identify the sources, which is very, very key. When we're able to identify the sources, come up with mitigation measures or policies to address them, it becomes easier. And we need cooperation, especially from the Clean Air Fund, to be able to do more of these studies, especially when we talk about source apportionment attributions. It's something that we are not doing our best in the country. We need to do that and be able to look at the toxins levels across board and work towards the regulation. The regulation aspect is being done. Currently, we have the draft regulations. The standard has been published. We have the draft regulations that have gone to the Attorney General for consideration. So that is also ongoing. And then aside that, we would also have to strengthen the partnership between our institution and then those in the foreign arena. I think working together and pulling resources together will go a long way to be able to achieve our common goal. It's not easy going alone, especially those of us who are under the government sector where funding is limited. So we need to appreciate this platform, and we need to work hand in hand, pull resources together, and then try to solve a global problem that we all cherish to do that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. If there's any question.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Poe, for that brilliant submission and also giving us a gist as to what the air quality landscape is in Ghana and the steps that EPA is also taking to address those challenges. I had wanted you to touch on how you thought this project will be very essential to addressing some or fitting into your plans. But I think in the interest of time, let me take one more question and then I can hand over to George. So there is a question for Honorable Larry, and the question is, how can the different county governments around Nairobi best work together? Because the drivers and impacts are beyond the administrative boundaries, but its management are defined, but the management are defined by the same boundaries. I'm not very sure, but I think what I gather here is that the drivers of air pollution are transboundary. And so if you have management sitting in different countries, more or less, how can they collaborate, or what synergy could be together to help address these issues? I think that is what I can tease out from. Honorable Larry, do you have a response to this question?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, okay, Mr. Rada, for bringing this up. Okay, around Nairobi, there is a NAMATA, which is Nairobi Metropolitan Transport Authority. And other than looking at the transport challenges for the city, there is a component about pollution and air quality control. And it is true that Nairobi alone cannot deal with air quality issues around Nairobi because air quality and pollution is transboundary. So within NAMATA, within NAMATA, this can be dealt with. And we have already started talking with Machakos, talking with Kiambu, Kajiado, to see how we can do collaborative efforts about air quality control. So something is being done about it. We are putting together this, the counties surrounding Nairobi so that we can think together about air quality in a broader sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. George, is there time for one last question or we move on to the next set of presentations?
I think there is time for an additional question. I have
okay, so I had Nanama Brown, Kluche's hand up. Is she still around? If you can unmute her.
She's unmuted. Go ahead, Nana.
Nanama, are you still around?
well, maybe we'll take one more
Okay,
question.
so then we have, I'll pick one more question, which I guess Honorable Larry, Erica Suman, and also we have a policymaker in Emmanuel Lapo online, and also even Desmond. Desmond once upon a time was with the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, and I think it will be good to give him the opportunity to also make a brief submission to us. So this question is directed to the four of you. So whoever wants to pick it up briefly, maybe in a couple of seconds, and then we can hear the thoughts of everyone. So how do the local governments plan to use this project if they don't have local measurements? So we know measurements are a challenge. In African cities, there is lack of ground monitoring equipment. And so if we don't have this regulatory grade measurements, how is this project going to address some of the gaps there? So I don't know who wants to start. Mr. Paul, do you want to shed some light on that? Or Desmond?
Yeah, Kofi, I was actually typing a question, which is quite similar, and
okay,
on how both Kenya and Ghana intend to the innovative ways they intend to share information for transparency with citizens, which can then galvanize advocacy. So that was my question, which I think they can look at later. But specific to the issue of what data and how the data can be used by the cities for decision making, I think it's key that as you mentioned, because cities may not have access to regulatory grade information, it becomes a lot difficult for the policymakers, especially city authorities, to be making some decisions which are related. But fortunately for us, I think the EPA has good collaboration with the city authority. There are some low cost sensors that are also around. And it's a matter of the level of collaboration. Because if the city has to be making this kind of decisions, they need to rely on the agencies that do have the right information. And so I would say that depending on the legal structure that the city may have, and in our case in Ghana, the legal structure means it's EPA's general specific responsibility. The city would have to rely on the EPA in terms of ensuring they are equipped with the right information to be able to make the decisions that they need to make. And also vice versa, EPA engages the city to inform them about gaps that may exist in their space and decisions that they are making which would impact on quality of air for the citizens. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Paul, do you want to chip in? I see your hands is up.
Yeah. On the citywide, it's very important. I normally like the bottom-up approach to solving solutions than from the top down. And if cities are really empowered with relevant data, they are with the people. They have the control over the city, and they should be able to also take it up and then take the right decisions in curbing air pollution. We, from the EPA perspective, the first thing we wanted to do is that get the legal framework in place. And the first step was the standard that have been published. And the second step is to get the regulations in place. And then we also have in mind that we have to look at the clean air policy. So if we get a clean air policy, we're going to pull the Local Governance Act and all those things into it so that they will have a clear-cut role to play. Aside that, data that we're generating, we have, though we are not covered in all the cities in the country, but for Accra, for sure, we collect the regulatory grade information. And that is very, very important for them. And Desmond and Co have been using those information. We've been sharing those information with them. So like similar what Kenya is doing, looking at the city level, programs. Ghana can equally share our expertise with the Kenyans and others who are here to do that. And I think it is very important we look at the city level very, very well, and then do a mission inventory at the city level so that we can drive these policies down. And if we're able to do it down, eventually we'll have the cumulative effect across the country. And that will be very, very important. And I agree with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So there's a question on communication, but before I give Beatrice the chance to respond to that, let me quickly respond to this question from Tom from Clean Air Fund. And he said, are there any specific support or calls that the city reps can directly tap into to address the existing gap in air quality management, e.g. the inadequate? Yeah, so I think there are some movements that are happening in the African cities, not only in the participating cities, but other cities. You know, the boom in low-cost sensors have helped to address some of the air quality gaps. So there are groups in these cities. For example, we have our Ghana Urban Air Quality Project where we've been deploying sensors all over the place. And it's very refreshing to hear from Emmanuel Apo, the policymakers, and that they have taken note of what we are doing and they think that could equally help to address the air quality challenges. There are similar projects in Uganda, ECHO, in Kenya, and other places. But I think what is instructive to note is that bilateral and multilateral agencies like Clean Air Fund should support such initiatives. You know, governments have very huge challenges. You know, over here in our settings here, we are not only fighting air pollution, we are fighting infectious diseases, we are fighting water and sanitation. And some of these things are of immense priority to governments than air pollution, because over here, we don't have the evidence to even show governments that air pollution is a problem and it's a killer. So if you're a government and you are challenged, where are you going to shift your money? You invest in water and sanitation, you invest in infectious diseases. At the end of the day, that is going to translate into huge electoral gains on election day. Air pollution, unfortunately, I might say, might not translate into electoral gains. So that is the reason why it's important that Clean Air Fund and other agencies support the endeavors that are happening on the continent so that we can continuously bridge the data gap and also use this data to inform policy decisions. And then it becomes, what do you say? Then the dividends can be very enormous for all. So I think that is the response that I have to Tom's question. But I'll give the floor to Beatrice to also give us some information on how the communication, because we are doing forecasting, we are going to generate data. How are we going to communicate this to the public? So Beatrice, if you can shed some light on that, that would be very great. Thank you.
Sí, cómo no. Perdón, estoy me pueden escuchar, ¿verdad? Yes, please. Sorry, I will say that the most important thing, as it has been mentioned, is what data is available, and it has been also discussed all the challenges that many cities in the world have of having reference grade monitoring stations. But fortunately, and I will just recognize the collaboration we have with their cool Africa and all of you, that we are hoping to use that data to be using the forecast and generate this bias corrected air quality forecast. So at the end, what we are planning is to have a platform in which not only the cities have access to that air quality forecast, but also any citizen. So far, the first cities that have participated and for who the air quality monitoring station bias corrections have been generated are available in a resource watch. And there are also some access to the API, so anyone can have access to that output of forecast and be used. As we have mentioned, we are focusing now on the local authorities, but that doesn't mean that we are we have open ideas and we are willing to collaborate with anyone who is willing to use or to have access to these forecasts. So in addition to the resource watch, we're hoping that the cities can also present their quality in their quality forecast in their own websites, in their own or any other organization that are interested in presenting or have access to this data.
Thank you, Beatrice, and thank you, Kofi, for moderating that session. Really appreciate that, and a lot of information, very good information is coming out. First of all, I would like also to mention that the reason there was a question that came directly to me, why we picked the cities that we did. And the reason is mainly because these cities had some initial investments in collecting air pollution data. And I have to commend also Kofi, Dio, and Professor Gattari for actually being in the forefront of spearheading this air pollution work in Africa and having some of the raw data from those cities. So thank you to those three for the great work they have done. Now we will move to the next phase of this launch, where now we want to hear from people who have actually done this work in cities. Initially, this project was first piloted in Latin America. And for that purposes, I will invite my colleague Beatrice to introduce the next speaker. Beatrice, over to you.
Thank you, George. Well, my pleasure to present the presentation that's going to give it by Edison Ortiz from Bogota, from the Environmental Secretary of Environment in Bogota. And I would say that this Edison is representing and maybe is sharing his experience, their experience by participating in the first stage and now in the Cainairy Alert with the pollution insight. So Edison Ortiz, he is the coordinator of the integrated modeling system of air quality in Bogota. That is part of the Deputy Direction of Air Quality of the Secretary, Environmental Secretary of the District of Bogota. Edison Ortiz has he's a chemical engineer and has a master's degree in environmental engineering from the National University of Colombia. He has been working over 10 years in atmospheric science and climate change, and has been directing over the last 5 years. He's in charge of the air quality modeling, of physical chemical modeling of Bogota city. He is also he works and he advises other areas of their entities, other agencies of Bogota in issues of air quality, emissions inventories, as well as meteorological and mitigation strategies of emissions of Bogota, not only of air pollutants, but of greenhouse gases as well. As I mentioned, Bogota was one of the cities that participated in the first cohort of cities, and now is participating as well in this second cohort with the pollution insights, using satellite products again to identify, well, not again, but to identify sources of pollution and eventually estimate emissions. Edison, please.
Thank you, Beatriz. There's any problem if I made the presentation in Spanish, because I'm a little sick, so I prefer to speak in Spanish instead.
Yeah, so we will ask everyone that in your screen, in your right bottom part, there is a sign that you can click and then you can listen to the translation in English. So please just click on that.
Go ahead, Edison. Thank you so much for this introduction. I will explain what we have been doing in Bogota in terms of forecasting modeling for air quality. And I will talk about some of the experiences that we've had working in this project, which is the City AQ forecasting tool. Next slide, please. Okay, so let me just provide some context in terms of where is Bogota, what makes it so important, and what are the main problems around air quality in this city, and how we have been building for some years now what we have air quality forecasting systems in place. Additionally, I will talk about what the GEOS-CF system is and how it was trained. This is a complement to what Beatrice shared in the previous presentation. I will show some of the results that we've had so far, and then I will wrap up with conclusions and recommendations as part of this project. Next slide, please. In order to understand this problem, we need to understand that Bogota is a very big city. Bogota is located in a basin, and we have several reasons for heavy pollution. We have, for on the one side, local sources. Industrial and mobile sources are the most important contributors to pollution in the city. We have created also an inventory of emissions. And we also happen to be in a very particular geographic situation that creates layers of pollution, as we can see in this photo. Additionally, we are also subject to external pollution coming from the Colombia-Venezuelan border. And we also see some particular impacts coming from Sahara dust coming from the city of Bogota. The Environmental Ministry in Bogota is the office in charge of, among other things, managing everything related to air quality in the city. And as part of its monitoring system, it has the atmospheric modeling system that you have heard of. And this allows us to understand the dynamics of the atmosphere and climate, and it also allows to have air quality forecasting. Next slide, please. Before starting to work in the CityAQ project, let's say that we took the long way, the long road, because the city was not necessarily in need of such a system. The first models in the city were installed in 2013 with the collaboration of a Colombian university and the University of Florida. And in order to deal with this modeling need, we had to create first an inventory that is required for modeling itself. In 2017, when I joined this team, we took all of those modeling tools and we started comparing them and using them for forecasting. So for example, one day we would send a forecast only for 1 day a week, and now we currently do it 4 days a week. So we started that forecasting tasks in 2017 with the CMAQ WRF models. As time moved on, we started creating rapid response forecasting in order to attend to fires around the city. We started to install first trajectory models in order to understand what are the influences and impact of external sources of pollution, and we started improving the local models that we had before this model. So we started to create some parameters in order to gauge the results and compare them to the previous model. Actually, in 2020, we developed our own emissions model in the city. That is to say, a model that can estimate the emissions of all sources: industrial, mobile, commercial, highway, and many other industrial activities. In 2021, depending on the specific needs that we would identify, the pollution coming from external sources to the city, we started to analyze the results coming from global models. And in that sense, we took two approaches. On the one side, to work with GEOS-CF, with the results coming directly from that project, and then working together with this specific project for machine learning and to adjust the GEOS-CF model with the current measurements of Bogota. Since we have been working with local modeling is always falling short in terms of trying to analyze so big regional events. So that's why we devoted our effort in this project, because we noticed that this would really help us to strengthen our forecasting capabilities to specific events that happen every year in the city. And we are currently working with regional emissions. So we are either managing or analyzing databases that use different global methods or global models. And we are currently working on the integration of satellite imaging with air quality modeling, inventory, and measurements of air quality. We are crossing all of this information in order to analyze these different data sources. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, as I was saying, the whole project of CDAQ starts from GEOS-CF. GEOS-CF is a model that is managed by the Modeling and Assimilation Agency of NASA, and it has a daily periodicity. So every day they generate models. This is something that I was able to take from yesterday itself. And it has a spatial resolution of 25 per 25 kilometers. It's a free access, and NASA has several alternatives of visualization. The ones that you see here are the ones that I did, just downloading data from NASA. And the other one is a report that shows an average for the city of Bogota for the following days. So it's relatively complete as a report, because it also takes into account a meteorological forecast. So it is important to understand that the GEOS-CF model is coupled with meteorological data. So this allows to not only have particulate matter 2.5, but many other types of data. Let's move on to the next slide. The work that we have been doing with CDAQ was based with two approaches in mind. The first one was to train, which is what we did directly with WRI and NASA, what we did was to provide the necessary data so that all of the algorithms related to machine learning could be trained. In 2018 and 2019, we gathered all of that data and provided that database, and several variables were taken into account: air quality and daily forecasts. And based on this methodology for the project, we were able to train a model which feeds the Resource Watch repository. This diagram has been shown before, but this is how it works for Bogota. For this model to be operational, it requires to be fed in real time, taking information from the air quality monitoring stations, in this case, the one in Bogota. And for that purpose, we have the second line, or the second approach, which is that we created a code that migrates data from our database to the OpenAQ repository. And that model takes the data from air quality from that repository. So at the end, we find ourselves with two databases. So data coming from trained GEOS-CF data and the ones that come from Resources Watch repository. And with all of that, we created two APIs that bring all of that information from the web, and we daily download this information for our own analysis and communications. Next slide. Okay, so what we can see here is basically all of the various products that we were able to obtain from this project. So on the one side, the construction of the APIs for the OpenAQ repository, which is the image on the left. All of those circles are reference monitors, most of them coming from the Bogota air quality monitoring stations. And we are showing the same information in our platform, but also feeding another global database. And to the right, we can see specifically how the forecast for today looks like in terms of particulate matter for some of the stations that are part of this project. We need to clarify here that not all of the air quality stations meet the criteria to participate in the training model. There are some specific requirements to do so. That is why there's a big difference between the number of points that you see on the left and to the right. However, the ones that do meet those requirements have a good performance in terms of air quality forecasting for the city. Next slide. These are the results that we validated a month ago. And what I would like to show you specifically is the following. Even though we have our own local air quality models, and since, as I showed you in the timeline, we have been working for 8 years in this already, the GEOS-CF adjustment is quite good, as you can see here. So in many cases, it can be even better than the ones that we have for some stations, because it allows to see what is the influence of the regional areas. So this data coming from Jan 15 and Feb 8 is where we have most influence of biomass in the city. So in this specific model, the modeling of GEOS-CF with machine learning had a very good performance. So the dark red line has some observations, and what we can see is that what the project actually does in terms of the measurements of GEOS-CF is to correct that GEOS-CF bias between the green line and the pink line. So we see that the pink line is the one that shows an enhanced behavior comparison of the 2.5 p.m. So that brings us to the conclusions. In the following slide, please. The conclusions are the following. So the first one is that since we have several models in Bogota, in several cases, what we decided to work in this project allowed us to have a better understanding and a better capability of forecasting in predicting regional pollution, particularly for 2.5 p.m. because that's the pollutant that most affects this city. Now, we also need to take into account that we analyzed the performance indicators of all of these stations. And what we see and find here is that even though it is true that the GEOS-CF modeling uses global data, it very well represents, very accurately represents the forecasting done in those stations that have a very wide spatial representativity, or those that are, let's say, in the background. So data is not so good when there is a very wide dynamic in the city, or the stations are inside the city, or they might be influenced by local sources of pollution. However, it maintains the same magnitude in terms. So we could say that the schedule or the temporality cannot be well represented, but the actual adjustment was very well represented with GEOS-CF. With this first performance evaluation that we did of the GEOS-CF ML model, we were able to increase our availability and capability of operational forecasting tools for Bogota. And now we can start designing and starting to experiment with new forecasting models in order to improve and enhance the indicators of these models. Let's move on to the next slide, please. This was basically my presentation. Thank you very much. This is my team with whom I work, and we of course are in continuous collaboration with WRI and with many of those who will join this type of projects, because we understand that transfer of knowledge is an extremely critical part nowadays in order to strengthen capacities, in this case, air quality forecasting models.
Thanks for your attention. Sorry for my for speaking Spanish, but I have throat problems. But I expect that you understand my message and my presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Edison, for the insightful presentation. Great insights there from Bogota. My name is Theo, and I'll be moderating the Q&A session. George, I wonder how many minutes we have.
I think we can squeeze a little 2 or 3 questions, but we were scheduled to stop at 5:20, but we can push that maybe to 5.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so we'll keep it quick. Yeah, so I think I'll start with the first question, and then I think I have 2 questions from the chat here as well. That I think while you're presenting, of course, I couldn't help but notice how far Bogota as a city has come with regard to air quality management. So it's a little bit different when it comes to our setting, because the air quality story for many African cities, it's still very young. Air quality management is yet to be mainstream in many respects for many cities. So that means that calls to question how ready the cities are to adopt forecast models as a mode of improving air quality management. So is there, in the spirit of south to south collaboration, is there any recommendation that the cities in Africa could we should think about when it comes to adopting advanced monitoring techniques when it comes to air quality, given where we are in terms of the readiness capacity, institutional, and also, go for it, Edson.
Yeah, thank you. One important message of our presentation is Bogota takes almost 10 years for consolidate many air quality modeling systems. But when we work with GEOS-CF plus machine learning with WRI, we found that there is a short way. You don't need specifically a robust air quality modeling systems. And I recommend a first approach using global models to try to understand local behavior of air quality. So the next step, if you have this global information, global forecast information, you could try to understand in another scale, the local scale, with a simpler models. So my recommendation is try to understand first the global effects in your cities, and then you try to reply the behavior of the air quality and meteorology with a simple model, and increase the complexity of models. So you have many models that could be give you more information. So that's the point that I want to tell you. We have many years construct this in atmospheric modeling system, but global models works as well as many years of work ensembling models. That's my point. Thank you.
Thanks, Edison. Yeah, great message. Start small and then then grow into that. This is a bit more technical. The question from Subu from Africare is the R that I think is referring to slide 8. Is the R referring to the Pearson correlation coefficient, or is it something else? That, I think that will be slide 8, if it's not. The R in slide 8, the table in slide 8, does that refer to Pearson correlation, or is that something else? As you locate the slide, you can ask the next question from yes, so this is a curious one. Interesting how the forecast is for today. It's indicating that the city has clean air. Of course, we know Bogota is a mega city, so that really gives some initial perception about the nature, the quality of the air in the city. So could you maybe respond how well the model capture is tailored to capture events, pollution events, talking about maybe those bad pollution days and and so forth. So if you could also, as you respond to the earlier question, why do you have clean air in Bogota today? We wanted to have clean air, obviously, but curiously, why is it clean air? Yes, over to Edson.
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you repeat me the question again? So,
the first question is about your slide number 8 that has a table, whether the R we see presented in the table, is that the Pearson correlation coefficient? Just clarification. Or is it something else? In which case, could you clarify what that is? Slide number 8.
Okay. With the refer to the Pearson coefficient, in this case, there we have a few data. So the correlation is not the Pearson coefficient is not good. But we have many factors to affect that indicator. So there are many monitoring stations that could be affected with local emissions, or simply all the models not represent as well the phenomena in these days. So we are trying to improve every day these indicators. Is our priority. But it's important that to understand that the air quality forecast should be accompanied with the constant evaluation of indicators of performance of the model. With the second one, what was the second one question?
The second question, I think you kind of touched on that when I was responding. Curiously, how come the model shows that, I think I missed a slide, that air quality seems to be cleaner?
The problem with Bogota is in a certain period of the year. So in this period, we have some pollution events, but Bogota is relative with a clean air. Yeah. There's some part of the city that we have a highest concentration, but generally Bogota have a cleaner. Yeah, since the problems are in a specific part of the cities due to more traffic emissions, more truck emissions, and industry emissions. We have a specific zone with high concentrations of industrial emissions. So the air quality problem focused in a specific part of the city, not in all the city.
All right, great. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Certainly quite relatable. That of course we know air quality varies in time and space. So you can, yeah, possible to have those clustered outlook when it comes to try to understand what the situation is in the city. And I guess that really, of course, the strong case for making sure we have a high resolution monitoring for all the cities. The last question, I think this is not for you, it's not for Edison, but maybe the next speaker could respond to this more like general and also point of reflection. That this is from Victor Pussy. Victor is from the UN Environment Program. While forecasting is undoubtedly adds value to the air quality management setup for most African cities, how would the city officials on the panel, I hope Honorable is still there, handle some of the resulting socioeconomic impacts, for instance, on tourism? For example, would one want to visit Kampala as an example if I know air quality will be bad in the next month? In other words, by having data, are we not shooting ourselves in the foot? I love these questions, but I think I'll hand over to George to, I guess, direct that to them to the next speaker or to the right person. Thanks, George. And if there are other questions, we can always have them in the chat. Over to you, George.
Thank you, Dio, and thank you, Edison, for a very good presentation. And also thank you, participants, for indulging or bearing with us. We have gone over time a little bit. Now I'm going to invite Honorable Wambua to officially launch the project. And then immediately after Honorable Wambua, I'll invite Akilu to give a vote of thanks. Honorable Wambua, please.
You can hear me? Close. Okay. Hello. Thank you, George, and thank you all the participants for staying on this. Now, on behalf of Nairobi City County Government and partners from Accra, Kampala, Kigali, Latin America, and World Resources Institute, I hereby declare the Canairy Air Alert project officially launched, and let's work together to make clean air a right for all. Thank you very much. Over to you, George.
Yes, thank you, Wambua, for launching this officially, and I hand over now to Akilu.
Thank you very much, George, for giving me this opportunity. And so I would like to really, before even wrapping up this section, I would like to thank the city leaders here for coming up front and even being with us in launching this really great initiative in African cities. That really a way forward that we have to work on, and for the experience shared from the WRI team as well as from Bogota City. I will get back to that. I mean, I really hear some people undermining the effect of air quality in African cities. Africa, yes, we are still far behind when it comes to the percentage of urbanization, but that is not true. I mean, when it comes to the way our urbanization is moving forward. So air quality, even I was referring some data, and over 50,000 premature deaths is really attached to the challenge air quality, to the air quality challenge. Of course, that could be more than the figure will be higher if we do a real analysis. And again, I would like also to mention that urbanization, even if it is very low, not that low actually, but the way we are growing is really high. By 2025, about 950 million people will be added to our current cities. That is in the entire continent, I can say it that way. So I would also like to mention the way our cities are really planned. Most of our cities are not planned, I should say, and 60% of the population living in slum. And the way transport, the energy, industries are growing is also really worrisome. So we need to think of some ways, how can we capture this, the effect of this ongoing growth of urbanization in Africa. So one way is about tracking the air quality, because it's really sensitive. Without data, we cannot plan better. So I would like really to underline that the way our urbanization is going forward really should be supported by proper data, particularly in air quality. And looking at the air quality dimension, it has also several benefits when it comes to this, because air quality looks across sectors, transport, industries, and other sectors. So that is also an added value when it comes to really air quality. So I'm really happy that this initiative is really being implemented in African cities and already launched to move forward with in some more African cities as we speak. So air quality, coming up with really proper tools to analyze and really plan for good way forward is key. And as we, WRI say, we start at a smaller scale by counting properly, as we said, count it, change it, and scale it. We are starting it in very small cities, 3 or 4, and then try to change and really scale it to more African countries. Once again, African cities, once again, I would like to thank all the participants here, particularly the city leaders and the people who've shared experiences. Thank you very much. Once again, I would like to underline the importance of this key project for African cities. And finally, I would like to thank the organizers of this launching event and the entire participants. Thank you very much. Over to you, George.
Yeah, thank you very much. And with that, I can see Honorable Wambua really chatting on. Let's work together. And thank you very much for being part of this. And with that, I think we have come to the end of this event. So thank you for your time and talk to you soon. With the contact you have shared, we will be thanking you. Thank you.
Thanks.